The grand chandelier of St. Peter's Hall sparkled like a constellation, casting golden light over hundreds of guests dressed in their finest. The orchestra swelled, and a hush fell over the room as Chukan Chem, the groom, walked down the aisle. The air was thick with perfume, anticipation, and pride. But in the back of his mind, something darker stirred. Then it happened. "Get out, old woman! I said get out!" Chukan's voice rang like a thunderclap, silencing the orchestra, halting the bridesmaids, freezing the air itself. He slapped his mother across the face with a strength born of years of buried resentment. Gasps erupted, whispers turned to screams, and in that moment, the world he had built, the wealth, the power, the admiration, collapsed into dust. What drove a man to destroy the one person who had given him life in the most sacred moment of his own? And could he ever rebuild the humanity he had just shattered? Chukan Chem had everything, or at least that's what everyone believed. CEO of Chem Tech, a tech conglomerate that dominated international markets. He was handsome, respected, and admired. His fiancée, Leila Marquez, was a picture-perfect vision of grace, wealth, and poise. The wedding, meticulously planned for 2 years, was the epitome of success. Yet beneath the glimmering facade, Chukan carried a wound no amount of money could. Born into privilege, Chukan's father had been a tyrant, a man whose love was conditional, measured in achievements rather than emotions. His mother, Sophia Chem, had been his refuge, the only person who had protected him from the coldness of his father. Yet even her warmth came with its limits. "You have to be perfect, Chukan," she had said countless times. "The world will never forgive mistakes." And he had believed her. He had carried her words like chains, forging himself into a man the world respected, but at the cost of his own softness, his own empathy. The wedding day should have been a celebration, but as the orchestra played and Lila approached in her white gown, Chukan felt a strange unease. He noticed the way his mother's eyes lingered on him, proud, yes, but tinged with fear. Fear of the man he had become. The tension between them had been growing for weeks. Sophia had spoken out during the wedding planning, questioning decisions that Chukan had made. It wasn't just minor disagreements. Every word felt like a judgment, a reminder that he would never fully be free of her influence. "You can't just erase everything I've worked for," he snapped at her privately, days before the wedding. "This is my life." Her reply had been calm, almost sorrowful. "I only want you to remember who you are, Chukan. Don't lose yourself in pride." And that calmness had ignited something in him, something violent, impulsive. Now, at the altar, as the church held its collective breath, Chukan acted on that impulse. The slap was not just a physical blow. It was symbolic of violent attempt to sever the bond that had shaped him. The room erupted in chaos. Lila screamed, guests rushed forward, and his mother stumbled backward, her hand to her cheek, her eyes wide with disbelief. But in the immediate silence that followed, Chukan realized that the damage went far beyond embarrassment. He had severed the one tether to his humanity, and suddenly all the wealth, admiration, and power felt hollow. The next hours were a blur. Lila left, refusing to return. Guests whispered, some recording the incident on their phones. His father, long absent from his life, sent a terse message. You have crossed a line no man should ever cross. Alone in his empty mansion, Chukan felt the crushing weight of his own actions. He tried to justify them. He was defending his autonomy, asserting control. But deep inside, he knew it was something far worse. He had let rage dictate his behavior, and in doing so, had destroyed the very foundation of who he thought he was. That night, he wandered the empty halls, touching the objects that symbolized his success. Expensive paintings, awards, a closet full of designer suits. Nothing mattered. The house echoed with silence, broken only by the memories of his mother's voice, the warmth he had pushed away, the life he had thrown into the abyss. For the first time in years, Chukan Chem felt alone, not just isolated from others, but severed from his own soul. The morning after the wedding, Chukan Chem awoke to a house eerily silent. The grand halls, once vibrant with preparations and anticipation, now felt like a mausoleum. Even the morning sun, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, could not penetrate the gloom that had settled over him. His phone buzzed relentlessly, messages from business partners, employees, even news alerts. But Chukan ignored them. None of it mattered anymore. Lila's face, twisted in shock and anger, haunted him more than any headline. His mother's eyes, filled with a mixture of pain and disappointment, burned into his memory with unbearable intensity. He wandered aimlessly through the mansion, pausing in front of framed photographs of his childhood, him as a small boy on his mother's lap, laughing at something silly she had done. Him as a teenager, learning his first piano notes under her patient guidance. A young Chukan, smiling proudly with his mother at his first school award. Memories that had once been treasures now stabbed him like daggers. Days passed in a haze of solitude. Chukan tried to bury himself in work, sending emails, attending virtual meetings, signing contracts. But every task felt meaningless. Employees whispered about the viral video of the wedding incident, and his reputation, once untouchable, began to crumble. Investors hesitated. The media labeled him a monster, and even his friends turned away, uncomfortable with the man he had revealed himself to be. One evening, in a moment of desperation, Chukan found himself standing outside his mother's modest apartment. He hadn't seen her in months, and after the slap, she had refused all contact. The sight of her, older, frailer, but still dignified, shook him to his core. I came to apologize," he stammered, his voice breaking. Sophia Chem's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in a quiet, measured disappointment that cut deeper than any yelling or accusation could. Apologies cannot erase actions, Chukan, she said softly. You must live with the consequences of your choices, and only then, perhaps, you will understand what it means to be human. Her words, calm yet piercing, were a mirror reflecting everything he had lost. It was not wealth, not power, not status. It was the trust, love, and connection that had once defined him. In the following weeks, Chukan embarked on a painful journey of introspection. He sought therapy, revisited memories long buried, and tried to confront the anger that had consumed him for decades. He reached out to Lila, who refused him initially, and to his business partners, who doubted his judgment. Every step was met with resistance, rejection, or cold indifference. But slowly, he began to see the cracks within himself, the shadows of pride and rage that had dictated his life. One rainy afternoon, Chukan returned to the church where the wedding had occurred. The hall was empty, silent, echoing the chaos that had once erupted there. He knelt in the aisle alone and allowed himself to grieve, not for the wedding, not for the humiliation, but for the man he had been and the man he longed to become. It was in this solitude, facing his own reflection in the marble floors, that Chukan finally understood true strength was not measured by control, wealth, or dominance. True strength was humility, empathy, and the courage to confront one's own flaws. Months passed. Chukan made small but meaningful gestures of reconciliation. He visited orphanages, mentored young employees with patience and care, and used his influence to support communities in need. Every act of kindness was a step toward reclaiming his humanity. Finally, he returned to his mother, not with grand apologies, but with genuine humility. I cannot undo the past, he said, but I can honor it. I want to be the son you raised me to be, not the man I allowed myself to become. Sophia studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and embraced him. There were no words, only tears, and in that embrace, Chukan felt the weight of decades lift from his shoulders. He had lost much, but he had reclaimed what truly mattered: love, trust, and the humanity he had almost destroyed. As the sun set over the city, Chukan Chem walked away from his mother's apartment with a renewed heart. He knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but he also knew that the true measure of a man was not in the mistakes he made, but in the courage to rise from them, and in that courage, he finally became whole. Weeks had turned into months since the slap, and Chukan Chem's life had shifted into an unfamiliar rhythm. The grand mansion, once a symbol of dominance, now felt more like a hollow shell than a sanctuary. He had sold most of his luxuries, downsized his business office, and distanced himself from the toxic circles that had fed his arrogance. Chukan's days were now filled with reflection, service, and quiet acts of redemption. He visited underprivileged neighborhoods, funded scholarships, and mentored troubled youth. Each encounter chipped away at the hardened walls of pride he had built over decades. He began to understand that wealth and power were meaningless without compassion and connection. Yet not all doors were open. Lila, The love he had hoped to share his life with remained distant. You hurt people deeply. Chukan, not just your mother, she told him over a tense video call. I need to see change, real change, before I can even consider being part of your life again. Her words stung, but they also ignited something within him, a resolve to not only reconcile, but to truly transform. He realized that redemption was not about instant forgiveness. It was about consistent, selfless action, proving that he could be trusted not just once, but forever. Chukan reached out to his employees and business partners. Some responded with skepticism. Others had already begun distancing themselves. But he refused to be deterred. Slowly, he rebuilt relationships through transparency, humility, and accountability. The media, once merciless in their portrayal of him as a villain, began reporting his philanthropic work and efforts to make amends. Even his father, the man whose expectations had haunted him for years, reached out, not with pride, but with cautious respect. I see a change in you, son, he admitted over the phone. It's about time you realize life isn't just about winning, but the most significant journey awaited within the walls of his own heart. Chukan knew he had to confront the deepest wounds of all, the ones he had inflicted upon his mother. One rainy evening, he invited Sophia to join him at a quiet, private garden he had cultivated in the mansion's backyard. I've tried to do good, he said, voice trembling, but I know that nothing can erase the pain I caused you. I can only live my life in a way that honors you and what you taught me. Sophia's eyes softened. You cannot undo the past, Chukan, but you can let it guide you. True repentance is shown through life, not words. If you continue on this path, you will find the humanity you lost. That evening, for the first time in years, Chukan felt a profound sense of peace. He walked through the garden reflecting on how far he had come. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every attempt to heal fractured relationships was a brick in the foundation of a new life. One built not on ego, but on empathy, love, and integrity. A year after the incident, Chukan hosted a public charity gala. Guests included former business rivals, community leaders, and young people he had mentored. The room buzzed with excitement, but there was an undercurrent of skepticism. Would Chukan truly have changed, or was this another display of arrogance? As the event unfolded, Chukan addressed the audience with humility and sincerity. I have made mistakes, he said. The most painful ones were against the people I loved most. I cannot change what I did, but I can strive every day to be better, to serve and to love unconditionally. He then revealed a major initiative, a fund to support single mothers and families in crisis, inspired by his mother's sacrifices. The announcement was met with applause, but more importantly, with tears and genuine respect. Chukan's transformation was not just theoretical. It was visible, tangible, and life-changing for others. In the audience, Sophia watched quietly. She saw the man who had struck her in anger, now standing as a beacon of hope, proof that even the gravest mistakes could lead to redemption when met with courage and humility. Months later, Lila returned cautiously but with hope. I see who you are now, she said softly. Not the man who slapped his mother but the man who learned to be human again. Chukan smiled, not with triumph, but with quiet gratitude. His journey had taught him that love and respect could not be demanded. They had to be earned, nurtured, and cherished. He had lost everything that had once defined him: his pride, his unchecked ambition, his sense of invincibility, but in their place, he found something far more valuable: humanity, humility, and the capacity to love without conditions. As he walked with Sophia and Lila through the garden, the setting sun casting golden light over the flowers, Chukan Chem understood the ultimate truth. We are measured not by the power we wield, but by the love we give, the forgiveness we seek, and the courage to change ourselves for the better. The story of his fall and rise would be remembered not for the slap, not for the humiliation, but for the strength it took to reclaim what truly mattered.